All right, welcome back. So we've got our leg extruded, and now we just need to create the joints for our legs. So we're going to do that now. To do this, we're going to click on the Create Sketch tool. We're going to click on the top surface of our leg. It's going to rotate us around. And notice right now that our back is kind of in the way right now. So watch this clever little trick we can do. We can come over here to the back component and we can hide it. And now it's just gone. But before we do that, we want to know where the back is so we can create our slots to fit to where the back is going to be. So I'm going to do a projection. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to do project include. I'm going to do a project. I'm going to click on this top face of the back. So if you notice, like there's the back. I'm clicking on the top face here. Notice it drew a purple rectangle on my sketch plane. Now I know where that back comes through at. I'm going to say, okay, it drew that for me. And now when I hide, I'm going to go back to top. Oops, tip it. And now when I hide the leg, whoops, I'm sorry, hide the back, I can still see where the leg used to be. So I'm going to try to square this up with my rotation, ish. Awesome. So now what I need to do is I need to draw this rectangle that I'm going to cut out. So I'm going to grab a rectangle tool and I'm going to show you a new alignment tool that's really cool to use. So I'm just going to draw my rectangle anywhere, and it doesn't matter what size right now. And we're going to define this size based on the width. So what we want is about half the width to be open, and then a quarter here and a quarter here. Because a quarter plus a quarter is a half, plus a half is a whole. Okay? So I know that's a lot to kind of get into your head. Let's talk about how we do it though. So we're going to dimension this rectangle. So we're going to push the D key, and we're going to click on this, just this side, and just go straight up from here. Notice it says 3.25, but here is a cool trick you can do. I'm going to type in back width. Now that's going to try and make it the same width as the entire back, but that would mean I would chop the whole thing off, but I want it to be half the width. So I'm going to say back width. I'm going to just do times. The decimal for half is 0.5 and push enter. And it just made it half the width. This way, if I go back and I change the width of it, it will actually decrease the size of this opening to be half of whatever I change the width to. That's why I'm defining it this way, so it ripples through. Now the other thing I notice is, notice how it's a little off to the left here. It's not lined up properly. So I'm going to escape out of the dimensioning tool, and we're going to talk about a new set of tools. So far we've only used these blue tools, which basically draw new things or subtract things from your sketch drawings. Well, these red tools also exist, and they're super helpful. These are all constraints, which define things, line things up for you on your model. They're kind of like construction lines. So what I want to do is I'm going to use this midpoint constraint. There's all kinds of constraints, and we'll use more of them in the future. What this does is you select two different things, and it takes those two different things and lines up their midpoint so that they're in the middle of each other. So here's what I want to line up. I'm going to click right here. See how the side of my rectangle is blue now? I just highlighted that. And I want to say, I want you to take the middle of this line and line it up with the middle of this line. Notice how the whole line across the top is now done. If I click on those two things, it lines them up in the middle, and it draws this little triangle here, letting me know that it's locked to the middle. So now when I change the width of my back, it's not only going to change this number to the half of the width, but it's also going to keep it centered and move the rectangle over to center it all the time because it's locked in the middle now. So when we design this way and we go back and we make changes, those changes kind of ripple through in a way that we expect, not in some weird off-centered kind of way. All right, so I'm actually done now. I'm going to finish my sketch. I'm going to hit the E for extrude. And I'm going to extrude, I want to extrude this piece and this piece. Because notice if I turn my leg back on, or my back back on, I want to cut it not just this piece out, I want to cut this piece out as well. So I'm going to do both of those, and then I'm going to just turn my back off because I don't want to cut it in the process as well. And I'm just going to pull this down and cut it. I'm going to click, and notice the operation says cut. It's all red. I'm going to click OK. I just made the little tab. I'm going to turn my back on so I can see it. And notice because I had my back turned off, it didn't go ahead and cut that either. So that was nice too. All right, I still have this problem though. Notice this. I've got these two tabs, but if I do a move real quick, click on the thing I want to move, and I back this piece out, there's still no holes for it to go through. So that's problematic. I'm going to escape. And then I'm going to come back here. But the good thing is, check this out. I've got a little line here. So what that means is that it's just going up to but not through the back. And that's a good thing. So here's a crazy cool thing. We can use this piece, this leg, to cut the two holes. We don't have to draw them and sketch them and cut them. Watch how we do that. That's using this tool called the Combine tool. So I'm going to come here to the Modify menu, and I'm going to use Combine. Now this is kind of confusing because Combine seems to think like you're going to take these two pieces and make them into one. Well, that's one of the things you can do. But the other thing you do with the Combine tool is you can cut the stuff. So we're going to use the cutting operation. So instead of join here, I'm going to go to cut. And that's going to ask you the target body. So that's the thing that you're going to cut. Well, we want to cut two holes in our back piece. So I'm going to click on the back piece for the cut. And it's going to ask you the tool bodies. What's doing the cutting? I'm going to click on the leg because the leg is going to do the cut. And notice it just cut out notches where the leg is. So wherever the leg goes through the back, it cuts out a notch for it. So that's perfect. Now, if I click OK right now, this red part's going to disappear and we're going to lose our leg. So in order to do this, I'm going to say keep the tool. I don't want to lose my cutting tool. I want to keep it afterwards. And then I'm going to click OK. And now notice how those lines that used to go across here are gone because we've cut this piece out. If I do a quick move, click on the thing I want to move, grab in one angle, notice now I've got it just like I want it to be. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape to get out of that and put it back to where it was. Now I need to cut this back piece of the back tab. So I need to cut this one. So I need to cut out these two outside pieces. So to do that, I'm going to sketch right there on top of the back, or the leg, I should say. I'm going to hide my back piece so it's not in the way. And I want to remember how long this piece is. If I forget how long something is, there's this tool called Inspect here, and you can go to Measure. And then if you just click on something, it will, oh, that's not very good. Down on this menu below here, it'll tell you how long it is, 1.5 centimeters. And remember, I want to keep this length the same as this length. So when I cut this, I'm going to want to make it 1.5 centimeters from this edge. To do that, I'm just going to grab my tool. I'm going to create a quick line across. Whoops, I need a construction line. Do a quick line across. Bam. I'm going to dimension that line. So the D, push D on the keyboard. Click on the line and the bottom. And I'm going to say that needs to be 1.5. Awesome. Now I can build in these two sides. And what I'm going to do is I want this to be most of the width. So I'm actually going to draw a rectangle for this piece that I'm not going to cut out. And then I'm going to center that rectangle just like I did before with the midpoint tool. And I'm going to define the width of it. So let's do it. I'm going to click here. And again, because I'm going to define all of this in just a second. Oh, my construction line on. Turn those off. I'm going to define it. It doesn't matter where I put it or how big. I can make it like small and weird looking like this. Because I'm going to define it in just a second. So I'm going to dimension this. And I'm going to make this back width times. Now if I do back width times, times 1, it's the same size as the back width. Because 1 times anything is itself. If I do 1 point something, like 1.5, it's going to make it wider than the back, which would be a problem. If I do it anything less than 1, a decimal number like 0.8, 0.7, 0.5, 0.6, it's going to make it smaller than the back. And those decimals, like 0.9 is 90%. So most of it. 0.8 is 80%. 0.5 is 50%. So half of it. 0.25 is a quarter of it. So I want this to be most of it. So I'm going to call this 0.8, which is about 80% of the width. I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to do that. Notice how weirdly off in one direction it is. That's okay. I'm going to use my constraint tools to get it lined up. So I'm going to use my midpoint constraint. I'm going to say, take this line, the midpoint of this line, and line it up with the midpoint of this line. And right there it is. Now that does not look very good. These tabs are way too small. They're going to snap off if I make them that small. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to escape out of the midpoint tool. I'm going to double click on this FX to change it. And instead of 0.8, I'm going to do like 0.6. And see how that looks. You know what? That's a little bit bigger than what I need. I don't think I need, no, that looks pretty good actually. I'll live with that. So now I'm going to extrude, I'm going to cut this rectangle out and this rectangle. But notice when I hover over it, I'm highlighting the entire leg. And that's because I chose to make this a construction line. That was actually a bad choice. I want to only cut this part. So if I just change this construction line, I turn the construction line off. Now watch, I can actually highlight these rectangles. So I'm going to say, yep, I'm ready to go. So I'm going to extrude this. I'm going to rotate so I can see it a little better. And I'm going to extrude this piece. I'm going to pull them down and cut. And I'm going to click OK. So I'm going to turn my back on, and all of a sudden we have this fantastic little phone stand. Awesome. We're not done yet. So next we need to cut our slot for our side piece to go in this way for our landscape mode. Boom. And then we'll need to round over some edges, and we'll talk about that in the next video.